Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal?
Here we go. One day until Election Day, so we got a big electorally focused show for you. Logan's going to be here talking about whether the state of Iowa, yes, that's right, yes, Iowa is in play. Ann Selzer shocked the world with her poll drop this weekend, so we'll get into that. Campaigns are also out with their closing ads, so we'll take a look at how they are making their final case to voters. Also, a little Epstein info, some audio tapes released where he talks about how he was Donald Trump's best friend for 10 years, so we'll dig into the relevance of that. Also asking the question if Trump October surprised himself with that Madison Square Garden rally. New York Times is declaring the end of identity politics, but are they right about that? And of course, Saagar and I with the big reveal of our maps, making the case for why we think the election is going the way that we think it's going to go. So break down the data, reveal both of our maps. We have them going in two different directions, so that should be interesting too.
Yeah, it'll be fun. We got our whole thought process laid out. Not to brag or anything, just called every state in the Electoral College last time.
Yeah, you nailed it last time.
I got very lucky. I got extremely lucky. I have much lower confidence in this map this time around, but that's why it's fun, right? That's why it's fun to do. As a reminder, thank you to all of our premium subscribers, and if you're not, you're going to want to sign up at breakingpoints.com. We've got exclusive major coverage that's going to be going on from basically now until whenever the election is called. So for context, we've got the show today that's going to include our election previews, like our predictions. Tomorrow morning, we'll have an update for everybody that will drop sometime. Yeah, we'll record it in the morning. It will drop beforehand.
Yeah.
Then
Ryan and Emily are going to join us for that.
That's right. Ryan and Emily will be there. And then all four of us will be here at the desk, including with Logan and with Decision Desk HQ software. We're really excited about that because it means we're going to have full-on, basically network-style coverage. We have live returns. We can throw to the maps. They're all to be dynamic. We can make calls here at breaking points for when specific races will happen. We'll have literally up-to-the-minute coverage, just like any of the other major networks. So there's no need to go watch anything else. Can we put that beautiful graphic, please, up on the screen? That's right.
Look at that.
6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's great to be back on Standard Time. I just have to put that out there. 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You can go ahead. You can set your clocks. You can watch it on TV. It'll be on live on YouTube. We'll also be taking questions intermittently throughout the night from our local stream, which again is for our premium subscribers. So if you want to participate in that, breakingpoints.com, you can go ahead and sign up. But all of this is just, it's like an apotheosis of our premium subscribers. I remember the very first time that we ever did any live election coverage on Rising, this I guess must have been 2019 for some of those coverage, and people put it on in bars, people put it on in their living room. The number one complaint was always, hey, we don't have any live coverage. You don't have a Kornacki style figure, you don't have data and all that because we had to use others. And so we've worked very, very hard to assemble as big coverage as we possibly can. So we've got everything that we need over here. You don't need to go anywhere else except right here for election coverage. Yeah.
It's going to be
It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Come on. You can't help but be excited. It's
gotta
fun.
know how
Election
the story
day's great.
concludes, right?
Yeah.
Although even I have to say that, it's not necessarily that we're really going to know how the story concludes tomorrow.
Yeah.
So.
It
could go on for a while.
And that's the other thing. Let's not sell it tomorrow night. We may not know. We're going to go late, if we need to, as late as possible. And then the next morning, and we'll wake up and we'll do it all over again. So it is election week. And every single day that this continues, we will have coverage here on Breaking Points. Don't worry about it until this thing is called. We're excited for it. The whole team is ready. We rested over the weekend. I bought an entire 18-pack of Celsius, so I'm ready to roll.
You're ready to rock.
I'm ready to go.
Good deal.
Okay.
All right, let's go ahead and get to Logan.
Very excited to be joined now by Race to the White House, Logan Phillips, our exclusive election partner. It's great to see you, my friend.
Hey, great to see you as always.
All right, so let's get into it.
Here we go.
I'm sure all of us at exactly 7:01 p.m. On Saturday for election nerds out there, it was a big Super Bowl. The Iowa Selzer poll dropped, absolutely shocked the entire political world, and really made this thing much more of a toss-up than I think others were prepared for. So let's go ahead and put this up there on the screen and take a look. So what they have inside of the Des Moines Register, the famed, Iowa and Selzer poll is that they have Kamala Harris up by 3 points on Donald Trump in the state, Logan. Now, the reason why this is such a shock is that this poll arguably previously was one of the main reasons why Joe Biden dropped out of the race, had him down by 18 points against Donald Trump, which people were transposing those results onto neighboring Michigan and Wisconsin and saying, if that's the truth, then there's absolutely no way that Joe Biden has a chance at winning any blue wall states. Now, Iowa, a Democrat has not won Iowa since 2012, so the first time in 12 years the poll has a Democrat leading there. Donald Trump won it by 10 points or so last time around. So give us your analysis, not only in terms of, we can give all the caveats if it's true, if it's an outlier and all of that, but let's start with, and let's suppose it is true. What does that tell us about what's going to happen tomorrow?
Well, I just finished work for the day on Saturday, and my intern called me and told me the result, and I had him check 5 times.
Yeah, I
did
had
the
to
same.
look
I was
multiple times. I was like, there's no way.
I checked like 8 different Twitter accounts before I believed it, because I was like, they must have at least flipped the results. Because even if it was Trump only up by 3, just that would be
terrible,
cataclysmic for him.
Yeah, because in the post-blue check era, you never know if the Twitter account is someone that is Dave Wassermans or something. It's like slightly off. But no, the poll was legit. And so if it were anyone else, I'd be like, okay, they just had a weird day. Good on them releasing it. But Selzer called President Obama winning in a landslide in the 2008 Iowa caucus when no one else saw it coming.
That's right.
Called
That's right.
Rick Santorum having a shocking win over Mitt Romney coming from 2% 5 weeks ago in 2012. Called Donald Trump's surprisingly strong win both cycles in Iowa. So I don't think we can dismiss it, given that almost every time she breaks with convention, she's right. This one is breaking so hard more than any of the others with what we expect that I don't think she's right that he's going to win it. But before I viewed it as a safe race, my own model had it at a 2% chance for Dems.
Yeah.
Which, hey, maybe doesn't reflect well on me now. I should give a little more room for uncertainty there.
Yeah.
Now I have it up to around 20 or 25.
Huh.
Which
that's 1 1/4.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
1 1/4 chance for Kamala to win. And just to be clear, no one was looking at Iowa as a battleground, including the campaigns.
Yes.
They're not campaigning
they spent
there.
no time there.
They're not running ads there. They're not doing any of that. And so what she finds, we can put this up on the screen, is she finds effectively huge movement among women. Kamala is winning independent women in this poll in Iowa by 28 points. She's up by a 2-to-1 margin among senior women. And so that's basically the story that she's telling, is that Roe being overturned was a political earthquake. It has dramatically shifted the electorate, and other pollsters are not capturing the movement among women in particular towards Kamala Harris and towards Democrats. How much credence do you give to that story? Are there any other data points to support this? Because as we know, as we've been covering on the show, almost every other poll is like tie, +1 in this way, +1 that way, maybe +2 if we're getting crazy. But it has been so stable and such a coin flip this entire time.
So I would say the odds are that it is just going to be wrong by quite a bit. There's a case, though, that she's right, and if there's a huge polling miss against Harris, these are some of the seeds. There's another seed we saw last week. We were talking about herding last week.
Yeah.
Nate Silver does really good analysis over the weekend, or at least I read it over the weekend. Said there's less than a 1 in a trillion chance that the pollsters aren't herding.
I think it was 9.5 trillion.
Yeah,
1 in
that's
9.5 trillion chance.
Yep.
Wow.
So I don't even know what the decimal point on that would look like.
Yeah, my brain isn't big enough to be able to calculate mentally the difference between
Getting
those
struck
two.
by lightning 8 times is more likely.
Yeah. So the reason they're doing this is because no one wants to be Quinnipiac being name-checked by Donald Trump after a bad cycle, blaming them, and that hurts their ability to get revenue. Hey, ABC, Washington Post is poll partner. They've been with them for a long time. They're one of the best. They had a horrible cycle. They're not with them anymore. So it's easier to stay in the middle. I'm not saying all pollsters are doing this, but clearly a lot of them are trying to play it safe. The second thought of this is maybe they're not just staying in the middle. Maybe they're in particular avoiding having outliers that favor Harris, because that's a lot more dangerous. She's not going to name check pollsters in her speech accepting defeat, right?
Well, also I think it wouldn't even be about name checking. It's just that it's a pattern. It would be 3 cycles in a row.
Exactly.
And that would mean that you have a systemic problem. And let's just hammer home for people what the past results. Can we put A4, please, up on the screen? So here you have the final Selzer poll findings and the results. So in 2022 Senate, she had it R+12. The result was R+12. 2020 President, she had R+7. It was R+8. 2020 Senate, she had R+4. It was R+7. 2018 gubernatorial, she had, this is interesting, she had D+2 and it was R+3. So that was one of the bigger misses. 2016 President, she had R+7. It was R+9. 2014 Senate, she had R+7. It was R+8. 2012 President, she had D+5. It was D+6. So as he says, about as good as any pollster as gets. If we look back in the last 12 years, if your biggest miss is a 5-point swing towards Republicans, that's roughly 2 points outside the margin of error. So if we were to even think that, that, here, 3 points, margin of error. So that would mean it's actually tied. Donald Trump is up by 2. Trump only up by 2 in Iowa, in a state that he won by, 8 points last time around? That's kind of a disaster, right? So if we take it seriously. The other case is just a massive outlier, or you have polling response bias or any of that. So can you run through?
Yeah, that's still by far the most likely. When something wildly goes against your assumptions, even when it's a great pollster, that's the probability. That being said, I literally have a Selzer-specific contingent in my polling average. I don't for anyone else because I found every single cycle when I tested it, the more weight I gave to Selzer's poll, the better it was. And so eventually I kind of had to bite the bullet and just do that. So
I think Silver has the same thing. He's his higher rated pollster in his entire average. So there you go.
Yeah. And you know what? We have seen similar things in Nebraska second. I mean, that was expected Harris to be leading. She's leading by like 10 points.
Yeah, I think actually.
What did Biden win it by last time? It was
like
5, maybe?
5? Yeah.
And I've seen polls.
It's that one electoral college vote.
Right, including, I believe the New York Times poll of that district had her up by 12.
Yeah.
So quite significant. Okay, so let's say that even if Kamala Harris isn't winning Iowa, but this is sort of directionally correct, right? She's picking up movement that other pollsters are suppressing out of whatever reason. How does that translate to the other states in the region? Could it be, because we actually have some information here, I'm not sure what element it is, but anyway, Iowa has a 6-week abortion ban that was just instituted, and it has been a central issue in terms of the political conversation in the state. So is it possible she is picking up some accurate movement in the state of Iowa, but that is very specific to that state and does not really translate to Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, those states have had some ability to moderate on abortion in the 2022 midterms that
good point.
Iowa didn't have. And, Iowa swung a little bit back in 2018. Democrats won 3 out of 4 House seats. They might have won 4 if Steve King, the guy who called himself a white nationalist, didn't lose his primary. Right. And then it lurched hard right in 2022, right? There's a possibility. Like, an object in motion in politics doesn't always stay in motion. Sometimes it reverses.
That's such an important thing for people to understand. It wasn't that people today, probably if you're young, you're like, oh, Iowa's a red state. I'm like, well, it wasn't that long ago. Obama won it. He won it by a decent amount. Last 2 times around. Let's go ahead and move on, I think, to Emerson. This is the counter, right? To A5. Can we put that, please, on the screen? So the very same day that Selzer comes out, Emerson also comes out with its own poll. It's got Trump up by 10 here in Iowa. Now, the criticism I've seen is that Emerson is more one of the herding pollsters, that is out there. They may be using the traditional recall to vote. I think Krystal's point is really key. One of the reasons why nobody's been paying attention is that people thought it was a red state. Neither of the campaign's been paying attention, but locally, they did literally just have a 6-week abortion ban that went into effect. And of course, that's going to be felt deeply by the people there. And actually, in the congressional races, they have all been running crazy ads on abortion in either direction for this entire time, which could be itself obviously contribute to the overall presidential result. But that's a confounding variable. I mean, really is interesting because it's one of those where it's like, look, somebody's going to be right here, and she's got a famous reputation and all that. But if it turns out to be catastrophically wrong, it will certainly, it'll be her biggest miss ever, I think.
Yeah, it will be, and I'll give her respect for doing it. She's fearless, and everyone else is hurting.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, she's got, can you explain the methodology too? So as I understand, it's not weighted per se, it's more like random digit dialing that the
but she's calling voter rolls, not just random people.
So it can go into that.
Yeah, she's trying to get a sense of which different groups are going to vote by just talking to everyone, and then getting a representative sample the electorate, which has worked for her. It's a little old school, but the reality is you don't know which groups are going to vote more. You can use last cycle as a basic principle, but it's part of the reason why you're going to underrate people, right?
So let's do the opposite. So, if she's wrong, obviously this is devastating for her reputation. Everybody else is proven right, including the pollsters who are just like, let's kind of kludge it and make sure it's not too far off of the 2020 result. What if she's right? Then what does that do to the entire rest of the polling industry if she's correct and we're in the type of landslide territory where Kamala Harris is winning the state of Iowa, or even contesting the state of Iowa?
Insane. Yeah.
It would definitely free up pollsters from hurting next time, I think.
It might free up a lot of pollsters a lot of time in general,
I think everyone's ratings, including myself, for pollsters that are forecasting, would emphasize to a greater degree those that don't hurt. That would get more positive coverage, where now it's kind of laughing at the ones that do that.
Right.
Starting to switch ever so slightly now. So I think it would change the industry in that regard. Would it decrease trust to a degree? Yeah. I mean, we're also, we're in a cynical era. I don't know if it's a social media thing or what goes viral. But when you mess up, everyone knows it more than when you get it right.
That's very true.
Very
It's
true.
absolutely true. Yeah.
It's not fun to talk about which pollster was the best.
Correct. And also the people who were the best in 2020 were wrong in 2016. So it's one of those where it's you can't really use just past results as a perfect predictor.
And will be like literally the only pollster that anyone listens to.
Yeah,
if she ends up being correct here.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's go and put New York Times then up on the screen because this is a little bit of a different story and actually a very confounding and interesting one. So the New York Times, Sienna, this is a poll which, let's give them credit, they haven't heard it in the past, right? And they don't use the weighted sampling. So, but they've got very, very different results here. So in Nevada, they have Harris up by 2 points. North Carolina, they have Harris up by 2. 3 points. Can't do perfect math here. Wisconsin, they have her up by 2. Georgia, they have her up by 1. But in Pennsylvania, they have it tied. In Michigan, they have it tied as well. And then in Arizona, they have Trump up by 4. So they actually have Harris in Nevada, in North Carolina, in Wisconsin, in Georgia, and but then tied in Pennsylvania and Michigan. So a tightening there in the blue wall states, whereas a Sun Belt kind of all over the map with Arizona leading for Trump, but Nevada, they're leading for Harris. What do you make of these results and some of the crosstabs as to their explanation as to how they got there?
Yeah, I still think the most straightforward path for Harris is for Pennsylvania, but North Carolina is probably the best backup in my book.
Yeah, and it's the number 2 tipping state, I think, in the Silver analysis.
Yeah, and I think for me it's 2 or 3 too. So I think that I've said this before, I hate to be a broken record, we get too locked into like what the cleanest path is. There's so many variations that could easily happen.
Yeah, you're right.
Which I didn't know this before today, but somehow I just found out you got every single state in
that's
2020.
Right, yeah. It's totally lucky. Yeah,
like I think you and Larry Sabato are the only 2 people I've heard of that got both Florida and Georgia right.
Oh, really?
And I think it's a good example for the rest of us mortals that states can zoom in the other direction than we expect, right? Because you don't expect Georgia to be to right of Florida going into that cycle. So North Carolina could easily end up there. I mean, there's a lot of kind of like you're talking about with Iowa. North Carolina is being governed by the supermajority in the state house as if they're a very, very deep red state when it's a swing state. That could easily turn out voters, especially on abortion.
And net in migration, very liberal. That's the difference too with Arizona. I'll talk about this in my prediction, but that's a key part of my predictions.
Let's put A7 up on the screen here. This is the some of the abortion stuff that I referred to before. So you've got a number of states that have abortion-related ballot initiatives that will be, on the ballot tomorrow. Nevada and Arizona are 2 of them. Florida, another one. How much, if we look at 2022, because that's the only post-Roe cycle that we really have to look at, how much did it matter, the state-specific abortion politics? So, do you think, for example, that in Nevada, in Arizona, because they have abortion ballot initiatives that voters are also going to be voting on, that could shift vote, be impactful in terms of the ultimate outcome?
If it were 2026, oh my gosh, yes. Because it's a presidential year, interest is already higher. It's certainly a help for Democrats, but it's not nearly as big of a help as it would be because this is the biggest game in town. It already gets people engaged.
Right. That makes sense. Can we put Iowa early vote up on the screen? This was a confounder to some of the Stelter results. Just take a look at this. Tell me what you think. So in terms of the Iowa early vote, what they see is, pretty decent Republican share of early vote there, highest that it's been, in terms of where it is. Now, obviously, the no party vote is still some 21%. Obviously, if Stelter is correct, then that would mean that almost all of that is swinging towards the Democrats, which it actually would back up some of her results. But taking a look at the early vote, this is what I've saw a lot of Republicans in their criticism say is like, look, we just don't see any of this right now. Like, if anything, we're seeing like Republican enthusiasm coming out in terms of their share of the early vote electorate. I guess part of that could be is they're just more used to voting early now than last time around, so you shouldn't read too much. And then, of course, the Democratic response is yes, but take a look at that Indy share, and the Indy share could be overwhelmingly Democratic.
Yeah, and throw into the fact that Iowa has been zipping right at a fast pace. It was 12 points to the right of the popular vote, I believe, last cycle. It voted R+8, I believe. Maybe it was a little more than that. So for it to then all of a sudden move, some of the polling of the popular vote is showing it tied +1, +2 Harris.
That's right.
So that would mean it zipped 13
The other way,
points.
yeah. Right.
Unless, if she's winning Iowa by 3, the popular vote at that point is highly unlikely to be like D+2.
Yeah, correct.
Good point.
Yeah,
Good point.
boy, it would be a wild night if that ends up being even remotely accurate. It's going to be very surprising, I think, for all of us if we were to see that happen. But, but take it with all the other polling results, and I don't know, make of it what you will.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show, ad-free, and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.